Me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? All right, that's what I'm talking about. How's everybody doing? Things are happening so quickly, folks. Happening so quickly. So when you come into the house, drop me a thumbs up. Let me know that you're there. I see a couple people out there. I see a couple people out there. I see a couple people out there. I'm just um I'm just bewildered. I'm just bewildered by what's going on. So how's everybody doing this evening? 7:29, one before the half hour. And I'm gonna get it started in just a minute. Doing what I do every night, Panky. Trying to take over the world. Nah, I'm just trying to make it safe for democracy. Damn it. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. So what's happening, people? How y'all doing? Everybody good? PIB. I'm down to the wire. I'm down to the wire. I'm down to the wire. Um, I was checking a couple things before I came on, and things are just kind of crazy out there, folks. Things are really kind of crazy. So, without any further ado, I think it's 7:30 straight up. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get started. So, drop me some hearts, show me some love, drop me some thumbs up. Let me know you hear me. You know what to do. This ain't our first rodeo. Folks, can you believe that I've been doing this for almost, I think April will make 3 years. So we're closing in on my third anniversary. And I've done over 100 and this is, I think, my 113th show. There you go. Show me love, show me love. Oh, that was so sweet. I'm gonna have to take a little sip. Yeah, that's kind of good. But no, let me stop clowning. I'm gonna go ahead and get started and work with what we got. Before I get started, I'm gonna tell you this: the show from last week, I went and I edited it. I did a what I call a director's cut, where I basically went through the show and I took out some of the fluff. Now, some of you say the fluff makes me lovable, or you like the fluff, or it makes me different than the other folks that are on TV. It's my way of kind of entertaining the folks that come on time and early. But as I prepare to take my show to the next level, I'm going to try to keep the show around 30 minutes. So some of the fluff and some of the redundancy, I'll try to edit out. So I'm going to tag those people of you who come in every week, and I'm going to ask you to look at this show before I post it um, on other social media networks. Um, so that's where we're headed. The other thing that I plan on doing is um, I really want to, how do I say this? I really want to make a splash. I think we've been sitting idly by for too long, and the Pelosi's and the Schumers and even the Bidens are doing what they want to do, uh, and not really doing what we elected them to do. So we're gonna do a little bit of a show of force, and we're gonna get organization together. I'm gonna ask you to go with me along this path as we get some things done. Um, so that's where we are now. We'll go ahead and get the show started. Good evening. Welcome to the show. As I always say, thank you for spending your Thursday night with me. Of all of the things you could be doing, you choose to be here with me. And that truly humbles me. My name is Hank Batiste. My show is called Omit the Logic. This shit makes no sense. I'm your host tonight, and the voices in my head are screaming, I told you so. Nah, 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 nah. I've been doing this podcast for nearly 3 years now. In 2017, I was probably in up to last November, I started off as one of Joe Biden's biggest supporters, and I was probably one of the first, if not the first, to say run Joe run. All along I said that Biden had what it took to unite the different factions, if you will, the progressives, the moderates, the some conservatives that was tired of the Trumpism and independents and even some of the Republicans who had just kind of tired of this wow extreme left faction of the Republican Party. And I was right in making that prediction because he won hands down. Um, so tonight I'm gonna talk a little bit about some of the my Creole powers and my Creole predictions, notably those that I made after Biden won the election and as the year started last year going into the Congress. Because you remember there were two seats that were up in Georgia that was going to tell whether or not we had the majority in the Senate as well. So I predicted that in order for Biden to be effective as a POTUS, a president of the United States, it was crucial that he have majorities in both chambers of Congress. I predicted that Schumer and Pelosi would be ineffective as leaders because they were just used to doing things the old way. After I saw the makeup of the new Congress, after the two people came in from Georgia, and I looked at some of the progressives, the AOCs, and some of these folks, I felt that it was utterly imperative that Biden swiftly push his agenda because I saw some internal conflict between the newly elected progressives and what I call Pelosi and the old guard, the so-called status quo moderates in the House. And I'll admit, I had no idea. I expected there to be some back and forth in the Senate, but I didn't expect Manchin to do what he's done. And I certainly didn't expect a junior neophyte senator from the state of Arizona to basically disregard everybody that elected her and do what she wanted to do to feed her own interests, be it big pharma. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about some of those predictions and review. We're also going to talk about who's watching my show because time and time again I have a tendency to say something on a podcast and then it comes to fruition. So you guys that are tuning in are not the only ones. that's watching my show and paying attention to some of the things I say. It doesn't mean that I'm that much of a political or policy genius that I'm the only one that can come up with um, some of the conclusions and strategies that I see. It just means that some of the same verbiage that I use is being parroted in some of the network shows. So tonight's show is called Congress Stalls, Democracy Falls, and Biden, Too Little Too Late. My name is Hank Batiste. This is Omit the Logic. This shit makes no sense, but we're going to try to make sense of it. Let's do this. Congress stalls. This shit makes no sense. Pelosi was all about being the first woman Speaker of the House. She had, that was her legacy. That's what she hung her hat on, so to speak. So I've been critical of her because I think we have to be just as critical of our own leaders. Otherwise, they're backsliding to doing some of the things that they're doing now. We can't turn a blind eye when, it's our friend. And I always tell the story of time after time again when I went from being one of the Indians to being the chief and managing a department and working with people that I once worked alongside with. I still saw myself working alongside them, but I had to draw what I call a delineation of authority and let them know that my expectation was if we're truly friends, you're going to work twice as hard for me because you know that you and I, but I especially, am under a microscope. So, um, I'm going to talk a little bit. If I were the administrator, if I were evaluating these guys' performance, notably Nancy's performance, Schumer's performance, and even Joe Biden's performance over the last year, this is how I would kind of sum it up. So let's say, for instance, that I'm Nancy's manager, a boss, a director, and she was sitting opposite me for her yearly evaluation or review. These are some of the things that I would talk about. Every week, I would say, Nancy, you've held press conferences, press conferences assuring us that the House was on track to push President Biden's aggressive agenda to lift America back up after 4 years of the despicable Donnie's regressive and divisive policies. And I think he failed. Week after week, Nancy, you failed to deliver and you promised the deal was closed. All that remained was procedural language that we just had to iron out. Each and every week, you promised in front of the cameras and God and everybody that it would definitely happen by such and such a day, this deadline. You set a deadline, and we saw that deadline come and go on several occasions, on multiple occasions. So, meanwhile, Nancy, in the midst of Black Lives Matter, I saw you take a knee for a photo op on the congressional rotunda's floor, draped with a kente cloth around your neck. And shortly thereafter, the George Floyd bill was renamed and drowned in a congressional swamp. Nancy, voting rights was spearheaded by the Trump Republicans, and you did nothing. The Trump Republicans just happened to be the minority. And out of we only had 23 Republican states, but we have 47 voting restriction bills, some of which have already become law. And you did nothing. Hmm. Abortion laws that were passed in several states, including Texas. And now these Republican governors are trying to one up each other about which is the most aggressive bill that they could get passed through their state legislature. Hmm. Then last December, Nancy, I think it culminated, your behavior, your performance culminated with you standing in front of the same mic that you had used every weekend and out for your weekly speaks and congressional House of Representative updates. And you said that you would not back a law that prevents Congress from trading on Wall Street, even though we know that you have an unfair advantage because you're privy to information that the regular consumer, a trader on Wall Street, does not have. Hmm. Now, Nancy, I feel like we need to come up with an action plan. But honestly, I feel it's too little too late because in the not so distant future, you're going to be replaced. And the person that's probably going to take over is going to be Kevin McCarthy. And he's going to make sure that the people under his preview, under his tutelage, get in line with whomsoever the Republican is. So, Nancy, as the representative for this corporation called America, I can't help but to put you on probation. The bad thing about this, folks, is none of this is going to happen. Nobody's going to sit Nancy down and give her this stern talking to, or put her on probation, or tell her how she miserably failed. History, or her story, is not going to remember the deplorable job that Nancy has done over the past 12 months, now 13 months. All it's going to remember is Nancy was the first female Speaker of the House. Moving on. That's Congress stalling. When Congress stalls, democracy falls. It's the next domino. So I'm going to start this off by saying, don't tell me that nobody watches my show. My friends watch the show, not as many as I'd like, but I'm sure that there are powers to be that are watching my show. How do I know? Because last week I said I challenge anyone to point out to me anybody that has been charged with participating in an insurrection. And I said that because I always defined it as a failed coup attempt. And then I turned on the TV this evening and I find out that 11 oath keepers have just been charged with conspiracy and participating in a seditious act. Now, sedition, simply put, is an organized act to overthrow the government. Somehow we are to believe that the Oath Keepers took it upon themselves to plan this failed coup attempt, oops, I mean insurrection. Somehow we are to believe that they were financed, or they found financing somewhere. They were organized, they were trained around the country, mind you, and they stashed multiple weapons around the District of Columbia, the US Capitol. Then I'm not going to say his name because you know I don't believe in giving these guys oxygen on my show. But the leader of the Oath Keepers texted some of his followers and said that this was only the beginning. So when I did the show, The Coup Continues, go figure. So last week, I challenged anyone to show me anyone or anybody that had been charged or indicted for anything more serious than spitting on a sidewalk and trespassing on congressional grounds. And somehow, miraculously, a week later, the Department of Justice has put together 11 cases against the leader and 10 members of the Oath Keepers. And they say more to follow. And then they brag about over 700 people have been charged. Charged with what? Now, to me, sedition is the same as treason, but I don't make that, I don't set up the laws. But it carries a maximum sentence, I believe, of 20 years in jail. Hmm. Club Med. Hmm. How about we get a congressman who is trafficking young girls out of Congress? How about we get a woman who carries a gun on the congressional floor and another woman who bullies and threatens other members of Congress and use hate speech? How about we do something with them? How about we charge Steve Bannon and the other, what I call closest disciple of Despicable Donnie? How about we charge them with participating in a sedition, a conspiracy to overthrow the government? Maybe then it wouldn't be walking around with these smirks on their face. Now, I keep talking about um, Nancy, but it doesn't stop there. Merrick Garland, let me refresh your memory. Merrick Garland was the same judge or attorney that President Barack Obama nominated for the Supreme Court. When Mitch stepped in, Moscow Mitch, and said, oh no, it's too close, the next seating president should have the honor of doing it. So Merrick Garland is now the United States Attorney General. He's put off Steve Bannon and the rest of those knuckleheads' trial. And all they're doing is waiting. They're waiting out this changing of the guard of Congress. Because the way things are going now, the Dems are not even behaving like they want to retain or remain in power, like they want to retain control of the two houses, because in essence, they don't. They don't have the control. Democracy falls when those that we trust to do what we need to do don't do what we need them to do. And they don't aggressively pursue these people. with extreme prejudice or the zeal that they would pursue if this was Black Lives Matter, if it were you or I. Moving on. Biden. See, I could talk about Schumer, but Chuck Schumer, I'm just done. Biden, too little, too late. You can't have it both ways. You can't be friends of the senators and then lead them as well. And then at this late date, today he went to Capitol Hill to try to push this agenda to get a vote in the Senate. And what they were voting on, ironically, is voting acts, voting rights, and some of the repressive things that are on the books now. And he failed miserably. So a year ago, I said it was imperative that Joe Biden have a majority in both the House and the Senate. I also said that it was imperative and utterly important that he push the agenda swiftly because there would be a clash within the Democratic Party itself. I said by doing so, they could probably exploit the Trump Republicans because there were some people that wanted to take the Republican Party back. And there were some people who were still kissing Donald Trump's ring. And if they came together, then it would neutralize that. There are times when I don't want to be right. And this is one of those times. So Biden went to the House today. He went to the Senate today to try to get this passed, to try to get the filibuster. Now, see, remember a year ago, he said he wouldn't touch the filibuster because it was part of the Senate and is age old and blah, 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 the blah, 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 the blah, blah, blah. But the thing that nobody talks about is Mitch McConnell has done away with the filibuster whenever he wanted to get something done, be it a local or federal judge or the Supreme Court appointees that he pushed through. Now we know that Despicable Donnie is not smart enough to know this much about government. The man who used words like very, very, and super smart. Nobody's smarter than me. I'm smart, really smart. So we know that this was Mitch McConnell's brainchild. The other thing I said is that in order to overcome this conservative US Supreme Court, it would be necessary for Biden to kind of, what they use the term stacking. And I said that the Trump Republicans said already stacked. What we would be doing would be bringing balance and equity, not equality, but equity, so that there would be true diversity on the highest court in the land. Biden didn't do that. In the first 100 days, Biden hit the floor running. He wrote executive order after executive order. Then he went back to wanting to keep the one campaign promise that he's trying to keep, bipartisanship. Meanwhile, what's happened, if any of you guys are old enough or have parents who are old enough to have Medicare, Medicare Part B just went up, which means there's more being taken out of their checks. He promised that he would take care of seniors. He promised that he would take care of poor families, the working poor. He promised that he would take care of children to make sure that children from underprivileged families would have things like Head Start and what have you, that there will be programs so that they would have the same advantages, or by the time they went to first grade, they would be on the same level. He promised that he would make the richest 1%, the billionaires, pay their fair share of taxes. He promised that he would get something done with voting rights. He promised that he would do something with police reform. And what we found out today is something that I've been saying all along. He's done too little too late. So if someone is listening to my show and you are you have the ears of the power to be, I would say don't stop now, Mr. President. Dig in. Manchin and Sinema are being called to the White House again for what? Tea and crumpets? Steak and potatoes? They have made it explicitly clear that they're going to take care of their own interests, their own financial interests, which means there will be no clean air bill because Manchin and the governor of West Virginia have deep ties in the coal industry. And Cinema is being propped up by big pharma, the drug companies, and the rich and the wealthy. Meanwhile, and I'm going to say this again, I'll probably say it every week, Elon Musk is on the verge of becoming a trillionaire. That's what comes after the B, the T, not billionaire. He's on the verge of becoming a trillionaire. And what's scary about that is he's making the money off of as the CEO of a space program. And there was a launch again today. Living here in Florida, every time there's a launch, people are lined up along the river to gaze just across the river at the Kennedy Space Center to watch these rockets go off. The problem with that is first law of physics say energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but just go from one form to the other. So what do you think happens to all of that liquid hydrogen or helium or whatever propellant they're using to push that into space, that rocket into space? I'm gonna get off that. We've got a lot going on this year, folks. The last few days, I've been taking it easy on Facebook because this show is becoming a little too popular. I'm in the crosshairs. So if I say doodly squat, somehow I've violated community standards and I will again be suspended. So that's why I'm not participating in a lot of things that you guys post. Once upon a time, I could joke with you, we could make jokes and we could tease each other. Those days are long gone, people. So Marjorie Taylor Greene can say whatever she wants. And she finally got suspended because she said something she had said a million times. She made some false claims about COVID. So, with that being said, folks, that's all I got for you tonight. It's not sexy. It's not easy swallow. It's a very bitter pill to swallow. And it's going to take a lot of libation. But I want to thank you for tuning in week after week. So I want you to do me a favor. Before I bid you good night, I'm going to ask you. Last week, I think 4 people went to my YouTube channel after I asked you to do so. I'm going to ask you to go to my YouTube channel. Some of you I'm going to tag with last week's show that I've edited. I'm going to ask you to look at that show and I'm going to ask you to give me a thumbs up or give me your input. So go to my YouTube channel, hit subscribe. You're going to see the show already edited. So if you take the initiative and go to my show, you can probably already get it in. The folks that I tag are the people that come here week in, week out. And some of them have been coming since my very first show almost 3 years ago. If you have already subscribed, I implore you to share my podcast, especially the edited version, because it takes out some of the fluff. And I try to stick to the 30-minute time constraint. Share it with a friend or family and ask them to subscribe. Give me some thumbs up when you view the podcast on YouTube. Okay? Leave me some positive words. As always, I will see you next week right here, same Baptiste time, same Baptiste place. I'm going to say this one more time. Don't be so afraid to die that you forget to live for a purpose. Because the one thing about this game we call life, nobody leaves alive. We don't have any more Martin Luther King. We don't have any more all of those martyrs. And to add insult to injury, and this is a good note, so I'm not going to call it anything other than that. Emmett Till and his mother were given the highest civilian awards. Him because of what was done to him, and his mother because she had the courage to let the world see what was done to him. My name is Hank Batiste, alias the Renaissance Man, also known as Rennie. This is Omithologic. This shit makes no sense, but every week we're going to try to make sense of it. So, as always, important, I wish you love. I wish you peace. Like your man, Grease. I'm out of here, folks. Have a great week and keep on keeping on. See you next week. Peace. This for you? That's it for everybody.